All right, for more on this, let's bring in Art Laffer, former Reagan economist, and Dan Brouillette, former energy secretary. Two of the best people I could possibly think of to talk about this. So, Art, big expectations, new Fed chairman. I mean, the President Trump's wanted a new Fed chairman for a long time, and he got him coming on Friday. What are your expectations? What's he need to do?
Well, it'll take him a little bit of time to get control of the Fed there, to get some more members and all of that. But once he does get control, this will be a transitional change that is transformational change that will be phenomenal, I think. If you look at when Paul Volcker came in 1979, by the time we came into office on January 20th, 1981, the prime interest rate was 21.5%. Volcker followed a price rule just as Kevin Warsh is promising to do, and the price of gold fell sharply. Interest rates went from 21.5% down to 3%. It was just incredible period of time, and I'm expecting that same type of pattern to hold with Warsh. He just takes some time before he can get all the sheep together and all of it together to run the Fed properly. But I couldn't be more optimistic, and I'm coming, by the way, to his swearing in on Friday.
Oh, good for you. That's great. What an honor. That's good. Dan, what's our new Fed chairman need to do starting on Friday?
Well, Jason, thanks for having me. I think Art's correct here. Look, I think that the focus of Kevin's confirmation for the last couple of weeks by the press in particular has been on whether or not he's going to cut rates fast enough to accommodate the president's desires. I happen to think it's a wrong question, though. I think the larger question is whether or not Kevin can restore the Fed's credibility on price stabilization. I mean, the American consumer has suffered through the last 5 years cumulative increases of about 20% in prices across the country. And I think that's Kevin's bigger challenge, is whether or not he can restore credibility that the Fed once had. I think he can. I think he's the right man for the job. He's been very, very powerful and forceful in his critique of the Fed over the last 15 years. He's not a guy who needs this job.
That's for sure.
Yeah, he doesn't necessarily need the job, but he is. I mean, look, he's the confidence that I think will bring to the job. I think it was Powell stayed well beyond where he should have stayed. With the new president, he probably should have left back then. But what's his biggest challenge, Art? I mean, it's still hard to turn the ship and get it going in the right direction. What's his biggest challenge, and how does he overcome that?
It really isn't very hard to change the ship. You know, a couple of things you need to look at for changing the direction of the ship, but what really he needs to do is get the Fed as a team together to go in one direction. That's really critical. It did take Paul Volcker a long time to do that, maybe a year and a half. I don't think it will take Kevin that long. He used to be a member of the Fed, but the key is growth does not cause inflation. And let me just say, stopping inflation does not cause recessions, period. A price rule is just guaranteeing the value of a dollar in terms of open market operations and the balance sheet of the Fed. That's all it is. And if you know you can control spot commodity prices over the long period, you can bring that inflation down, way, way down, just the way Volcker did. And that's the way he's going to do it. But that is the key here. And he is as persuasive as anyone I know. He's just a lovable guy, and he'll do a great job.
Dan, for you, let's talk a little bit about energy, because obviously you're, given your background, energy exports, they're surging. But Americans, when you're paying north of $4 a gallon, spending over $100 to fill up your F-150, they're feeling it. But what's got to happen? I mean, this could change in a moment's notice with the Strait of Hormuz opening up, but what else can be done?
It really could. And once that strait is open, I think Kevin's job is going to get a little easier. Obviously, energy is driving a lot of these inflationary pressures, or these price increase pressures that we're seeing all across the country. So opening the strait is item number one. It has to get open, and it has to be open soon. But we can do some other things too, Jason. I applaud what the EPA did recently in eliminating or creating a waiver for some of these what's called boutique fuels. These are specialized fuels that are used in places like California, New York, other places where they have climate sensitivities that go beyond what we refer to as the rational. Eliminating some of those boutique fuel requirements allows the refiners to provide one level of gasoline, one type of gasoline to the lower 48. That makes it dramatically cheaper. And those are the types of things I think the administration is looking at. We could also increase our production and increase our infrastructure. You know, we've challenged ourselves over the course of the last, call it 10 years, to do things like increase LNG or increase natural gas production. The industry has responded in kind, and because of that, we're now the nation's largest exporter of LNG. I mean, the world's largest exporter of LNG. Those are the types of things we can do, and I think the administration is focused on it.
Yeah, the fundamental difference, Art, and you know this, I'm not telling you anything new, but Democrats purposely were running up the cost of fossil fuels and gasoline. They purposely wanted to have $4 and $5 gasoline. That was their goal and their objective. Where Donald Trump has got high prices now because, well, he's making the world safer and to make America more safe by getting rid of the Iranian nukes. But his goal is to get gas down below $2 a gallon. There's a fundamental difference here in their approach and their goals, and it will flatten itself back out, won't it?
It will indeed. It was there in the first term. It'll be there again.
Oh,
sorry,
Jason.
Art.
Yeah, just for the. Oh no, with that, don't. Dan, you're the expert. Just before Reagan decontrolled oil, the price of oil in today's prices was $170 a barrel. By the time 4 years had passed with the decontrols, the price of oil was down to $34 a barrel. That's in current prices, so adjusted for the passage of inflation. You know, that was just because of all the decontrols. What Trump has done coming in and the decontrol of oil will maybe not have as big an effect as that, but it will have a huge effect. And I think Dan's completely correct. Once the Straits of Hormuz are open, the price of oil is going to come down, but I think it's going to come down far more than any of these other people think it will. I think it's going to come way, way down, and it will have a very great effect on inflation as well. So I'm looking for a huge drop in the price of oil per barrel, and I think that's going to translate into gas and energy prices and costs of other products that will be very dramatic. And that all we need is the Straits of Hormuz open. We already are producing huge amounts in the U.S. As Dan said, we're a net exporter now. So this is a great change, and we have precedent to show this effect is huge.
Dan, last word to you. We've only got about 20 seconds.
I agree with Art. He's absolutely correct. But Jason, what we need to do is look at things like permitting reform here in the United States to make it easier to build infrastructure to get that product to the markets in which it needs to be.
I think they're moving that direction. I'm so glad the president has the right cabinet there. They understand the objective, and the president's leading the band, and it is going well. But they've got to deal with Iran. But that's a moment by moment at this point. Art, Dan, thank you so much for joining us on Kudlow. Do appreciate it.